Welcome back to OverThink, the Overwatch game show where I ask contestants hot takes and see where they stand, with the 3 circles representing the disagree stance, the neutral stance, and the agree stance. The lines in between representing the somewhat stances. If you didn't know, anybody could participate in this game show. I have open signups in my Discord server, so feel free to sign up there. Also, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I also host these live on Twitch, so go follow me there. And if you want to suggest any hot takes or themes for future episodes, please comment them down below as well. In today's episode, I invited 10 Grandmaster players onto the show to find out what we've all been wondering. Do all GM players think the same? Let's find out. GM on console is not the same as GM on PC. Go. Whoa, we've never had this. Oh, I was gonna say, we've never had every single person in the same stance before. I'm actually really surprised at how everybody's on the agree side of the spectrum because we have quite a few console players here.
I think the main difference is because I noticed in higher GM, there's a whole lot of zimming on console, and that with aim assist is really annoying to deal with. And also because streamers and stuff play in GM top 100, you don't have to deal with as many streamers because they're on PC. But that's my opinion.
The reason why I'm in a somewhat agree is because I think that console has like a lot of the same skills as PC, but there are some skills that are different because when you're playing on a console, it's a little bit harder for like aiming and just fundamentally how you're aiming is different. But I think console and PC are very similar when it comes to like movement skills and game sense wise.
I'm here right now because I actually came from Xbox. I used to be top 500 all the way from over there. And when I switched over to PC, I actually dropped down to Platinum. And it actually took me some while to get to Masters on Overwatch 2, obviously. But I still feel that there is still discrepancies between each other.
Not statistically, but like just factually, console has like a lower skill ceiling than PC because while aim assist is a thing, that's only like important for what, like one of the roles maybe, hit scan. But like on just console, it's like everything's a lot like slower. Like aiming is a little bit harder, movement's a little bit like not as clean. Communication, I would argue, is not as important because people are like, it's generally like a console's generally a more casual audience too. So like it's generally like a different, like people aren't taking it as seriously as like Alstoa mentioned with the most streamers that play on, or almost every streamer plays on PC. So it's like that's where most of the audience is and where most people play. Yeah, because you don't see like any console Overwatch tournaments, or if you do, they're like very barely. Yeah, you can pretty much barely find them. So it's just, I think the PC is just generally a lot more competitive.
Being GM on one role generally means you're good at the other roles too. Go.
There are obviously there are some exceptions. Like I would argue, one tricks probably don't know how to play even other heroes in the don't know how to, but prefer not to play other heroes in the role. But like from the climb from climb from like most people I guess start in like gold plat-ish to like all the way to GM. Even if you're playing the same consistent role, you're watching how other people play. Even if it's like only shortly on like the death screen, you're watching how other people play, and like you like passively will learn how to play that. Like I pretty much only play tank, but from watching like random skilled people on my team, I've started branching out into support and DPS a little bit, and I found it's like, oh, I'm also like pretty good at this. So it's like I might be the exception, but I think it's just like people like passively will gain knowledge while like climbing and playing and whatnot.
So I started Overwatch 2 and I reached top 500 as like a Mercy and Break player, and so people would always kind of harass me and they'd be like, oh well, you're just Mercy and Break, like you wouldn't be Diamond on any other roles. And I kind of took that as a challenge, and in I think 2 seasons I went from Diamond to top 500 on DPS, and I just think it was surprisingly easy, especially compared to what it took to get to support. And a lot of that's because I get a lot of my play style from how I'd play supports. Also, the reason that I was starting in disagree and that I'm not in fully agree is that have you guys ever talked to a top 500 hit scan player? Because they don't know what's going on. Like they don't have any, you see them play support or tank and it's just a different game.
So do you think like a Pharah player is more skilled or whatever than a hit scan player?
Absolutely. I think Pharah is probably one of the hardest heroes in the game.
So I think that most players who are in higher levels, of course, if you are watching players, obviously, as you said, who you spectate them, etc., if you're a one trick and stuff, it might be hard. However, I do think, in my opinion, after watching other people and as well as kind of just being in my own area, I think that without a doubt, if you really, really tried, you could kind of get the understanding of game sense from other people. But I think it also comes down to mechanical skill at the end of the day, and it really depends on what you're comfortable with.
Fundamentally, there's a lot of things that go into playing tank, DPS, and support, each with their own characteristics, so to speak. And I was originally only a support player, and I climbed my way all the way to GM top 500 on tank, and not DPS yet, but I climbed my way there. And yeah, being GM definitely helped a lot, but there's a lot of things that you don't pick up just playing only one role, I guess.
I'm actually surprised to see you specifically in the disagree, because I'm pretty sure you were the highest ranked player like amongst all three of the roles. So it's actually pretty cool to see somebody who's like one thing, but you're able to like empathize with like people who aren't, I guess, as good at the game on all roles as you are.
I think that all the roles are like really different, and that's mainly due to like my own journey and like competitive Overwatch. I've been GM support for like a very long time, but it's taken a long time to get my like DPS up there, and it's taken even longer to get my tank to like even masters. I just think the roles have like different play styles and different like ways that are like optimal that like you have to learn.
Before we go back to the middle, if you are below masters in any other role, can you start jumping real quick? Okay. We have a couple. It is important to always try to play meta. Go.
I feel like, as we saw with the Junker Queen meta, that it was really, really hard to win if you're not playing Junker Queen. She was just so overpowered that if your tank didn't go Junker Queen, just almost give up. There is always that time that you can like win and play against it, but if you're not running always the meta picks, there is always gonna be that difficulty for you to actually win the fights and actually win the whole game as it is.
I think that meta is semi-flexible because like meta can vary from map to map. So like I do think that you get like diverse like compositions and stuff, but I don't think that you should try to like force things that aren't coherent with like whatever meta your team is playing. So like if your team's wanting to run like a brawl composition, you should like pick characters around that.
90% of the times it doesn't matter at all if you play meta or not. It's just those 10% of games, like I play in GM1, and there's sometimes you will have this like crazy tank player and they have Mei and they have like full rush and you just insta lose because your team is not playing like to counter it or something. But a lot of the times I think you should play what you're comfortable on, and especially like now there's a lot of one tricks. I think there's always been, and if you get one tricks you should definitely play those heroes because that's how you got to GM in the first place.
Yeah, I think apart from like the top, like this very, very top, like not even like all top 500, like top like 50% of top 500, meta isn't as important because it's like, especially with this season with like all the balances and whatnot, this meta is like pretty diverse. Like there's not one specific tank like when Queen was broken that is like very overbearing, because like right now there's, I would argue like half of the tank roster is viable. There are some heroes obviously that have counters, like Queen is countered by Ana, etc., but it's like this, you don't really need to play meta to win. Like there's like a lot more heroes that you can do stuff with as long as like you know how to play your hero.
I do actually have to agree mostly with Artemis here. Obviously, I do think that the meta right now is, especially for tanks, is actually fairly balanced. I feel like a lot of times as a tank player, I can pick up most people with and play with almost any tank right now and still get away with a win. Obviously, as you said, there's counter picks to every hero, but I do agree with him, and I do think that mostly for now, the meta does not matter, especially for one-trick players. If you're really good at a one-trick and you can just, you know how to get around counters and stuff like that, you'll do just fine.
When I was editing my Bronze Overthink video, I asked the Bronze players what they thought meta was. As I was editing this, I was in a Discord call with my brother, and one of the contestants mentioned that they thought pharmacy was meta. And my little brother agreed, and I disagree. So I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think. Do you think pharmacy is meta? Go ahead to what your stance is. All right, Greg. Where the f you at, Greg?
Yeah, Greg, come on, man.
Yeah,
what's the
Greg.
question?
Just the fact that an enemy team has a pharmacy, like literally the only thing you can do to counter that is have a good DPS player. Like that is the only thing you have. If you don't have that, you just lose.
I
And,
actually
like,
disagree with that. No, because I think
go
the
ahead.
statement that like when people say like, oh, like Pharah is countered by hit scans, I think usually that is bad Pharah is countered by hit scans because a lot of bad Pharah players don't know how to use cover correctly and they'll fly out into the middle of nowhere and they'll just get one shot, right? But if you like position well around corners, you are just as, you know, vulnerable as any other DPS basically, but you also get so much more attention. Like a lot of time Pharah isn't really about killing things, it's about the fact that you have 2 DPS and probably the supports looking at you and you alleviate a lot of pressure from the other supports. And I say this as a GM1 Pharah player as well.
Alex, I would like to do a casual debate with you about this. I think Pharah is like she's not like queen broken, but she's like, I think she's a good farm player, can like literally control a lobby because she has like with just like 2 people, like she's a mercy pocket, then she can like force an entire team to swap. Like even 2 hit scans, I don't think can a good Pharah. I think we'll still wipe the floor with both of them.
I think you can even counter Pharah by playing Tracer if you're just playing better than the farm Mercy overall and you just shut down the other support.
Yeah, yes.
But there's a lot of ways to counter everything in this game, but I think the problem with Pharah is actually Mercy. I think Mercy is extremely overpowered. Pocketing in this game is crazy.
I feel like if you're gonna say that Mercy's overpowered, then you're not playing correctly the game. Because Mercy is not overpowered. It's
Mercy's
not.
absolutely overtuned.
Just dive her and always look at her cooldowns. There's always that things going for her. They even nerfed her cooldowns for that reason. Because they knew that she actually was a little bit overpowered with the 1.5 seconds GA. But when the nerf hit her, it's actually more balanced now because you can actually run her down.
So Mercy is like essentially free focus fire with no communication. That's where a lot of her power is. The fact that you pick her and you have instant communication.
I can put it in a different way as well. I think she's the best duo here in the entire game.
Mercy is like, I would argue, she has the other than Discord Orb, she has the most broken ability just in her right click.
I don't think she's broken, and again, I do think it's highly dependent on the map for Pharah, because, I mean, on certain maps, even with the really good Pharah Mercy, you're gonna get shut down. But on, like, what's that map called? The Brazil one, I think? Brazilian one?
Bronco?
Yeah, she's gonna be stronger. So, like, I mean, it's really heavily dependent on that.
When somebody said the Brazilian map, who said Esperanza?
I plead the fifth.
Not bad.
2 to the 1 to the 1 to the 3. I play easy mode and I play to win. I love to die and I like to BRB. All systems checked out. Group up with me. 2 to the 1 to the 1 to the 3. I'm here to party. GG. A giant gorilla can keep up with me? You can't be serious.